Hello and welcome back to the Across the Pod podcast. It's time for another team season preview, and this time it's a turn of the champions, the Kansas City Chiefs. With me, I've got a returning guest. With me today is Brad Symcox. How are you, mate?
I'm very good, mate. Thanks for having us back again. I think you're a bit of a good luck charm for us.
Yeah, I think I generally am because I've been to two live games involving the Chiefs. So
Yeah.
all those times I've been to games that have involved the Chiefs, you've gone on and won the whole thing. So I was in New England in 2019, saw you guys beat the Patriots and Gillette, and after you went on to win the whole thing for the first time in God so many years. And then I went again last season for the Chiefs against the Raiders, and well, what happens 4 months later? You win the whole thing. So I think that if we're talking off camera, if I'm lucky enough to get to go to Dolphins Chiefs this year in Germany, then I think you may as well, if you're listening to this podcast or watching on YouTube, put your bets on now for them to win the whole thing because
I'll have
I'm
to get
always
you a ticket now. That's
make
that's
you a miss it.
definitely a
Yeah,
shoe in now.
yeah. I was 0-2 watching Brady play, which I loved, but I'm 2-0 watching Mahomes play, and I'm 2-0 watching the Chiefs play, and then they've gone on and win things. So I think I seem to be. And on the flip side, I've been to 4 Dolphins games in my life. We've lost all 4, so I seem to be a bit of a curse for my own team and a bit of a luck charm for the Chiefs.
Happens like that sometimes. I think actually at all the times I've seen the Chiefs play, I'm actually undefeated at the minute when I've gone to see them. So long may that continue.
Mm. And it may well do in Germany, of course. One of the games we'll go into that later on in the episode, but one of the games is Germany, of course, the first time ever played in Frankfurt, a regular season game, the second time ever in Germany, and also the first time Chiefs or Dolphins are playing in Germany. And you said you're going to the game as well, so just how excited are you to be going to watch the Chiefs a bit closer to the UK than it would be in America?
I like the fact that it's in Germany. I mean, I think people have asked me before about, are you not bothered that they haven't got the UK kind of market or anything? Because a lot of teams obviously had to go through the market, didn't they, and put forward where they wanted to be. But I think Germany is a great place because the fan base is there. I don't know if you've watched the Bundesliga or anything like that, but they are crazy fan bases over there in the Bundesliga. So if they can translate that to the NFL games, and if the Chiefs are actually a home team for the Germans, I think that's going to be absolutely electric. Looking forward to it. Obviously, there's a bit of spice to it with the Tyreek Hill connection and him shouting his mouth off during the off season that he was going to score touchdowns at Arrowhead. We decided we were going to take the game away from Arrowhead and take it to Germany, so he couldn't do that. So there's a bit of back and forth at the minute. So added spice to it. Great German beer. The people are great in Germany as well. I think it's just going to be an absolute Super Bowl atmosphere there. I really do. It's going to be an amazing place to go and watch them.
I agree. And I think I've said it before in a previous episode. I do think that this is the best ever international game matchup on paper. I mean, most years, this year we got the Bills Jags, that's quite a good one. But most years in London, the common takeaway when they announce the fixtures is why is that game on? Why are they showing those teams? There seems to be a common thread, a trend of people not being happy with the teams that play. And a lot of times it's down to Jags not being very good. Stuff like that. Like Jags Texans was something that not people were excited about. But I think this game for me is the best I've ever seen from matchup. You've got obviously a Super Bowl champions. You've got a very exciting Dolphins offense. Even defense, you've got a few good players there as well. So I think it's going to be great. And I think that it's going to add to the spice in terms of, as you say, the Tyreek Hill situation. And I believe it's Seahawks that are I think they're the most followed team in Germany. But either way, I think they'll certainly, I think there's still quite a few fans from the Chiefs in Germany. And I've been to a Dortmund game in the Bundesliga, and that was an amazing atmosphere, one of the best I've ever been to. So it should be a cracker. And hopefully, if I get to go, I'm looking forward to what should be a great atmosphere.
Yeah, it should be brilliant. Like I said, I'm just looking forward to the whole. I'm there for about 5 days. I'm just going to kind of soak everything up in Frankfurt and meet everybody I can over there. Some of the German fans over there are going to be brilliant. And there's quite a lot of fans coming over from the USA as well, which I've had a chat with a few of them. And they said, let's meet up for drinks and stuff. I think the whole occasion. I mean, we've had it a lot of the time in the UK international series games where you get there's so many people from around the world actually come to these games. And I think Germany's just going to be a great platform for that. It's going to be amazing. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, and as a champion, looking forward to even more, I imagine, the season coming ahead. Speaking of which, the off season as a whole, the main ins, not really too many incomings in free agency. I mean, the likes of Lamar Jackson, not the Lamar Jackson, but the
Not
corner.
the Lamar Jackson, yeah.
That'll be quite a plot twist in the offseason. Jawan Taylor's come in from the Jags, the offensive tackle. Drew Tranquill's come in, the linebacker from the Chargers, as well as your new backup quarterback, Blaine Gabbert's come in to replace the retiring Chad Henne. Other players that have left include Orlando Brown, your left tackle, who's gone to the Bengals. Frank Clark, defensive end, has gone to the Broncos. Carlos Dunlap has left, the defensive end, but he's currently unsigned. McCole Hardman has gone to the Jets, your former wide receiver. Former running back Ronald Jones has gone to the Cowboys, as well as Juju Smith-Schuster, your wide receiver, to the Patriots, and tackle Andrew Wiley to the Commanders. And in the draft, you took Felix, and I may completely mispronounce his name here, but you took Felix Anadike Uzoma from Kansas State, 31st overall, the defensive end. And then Rashee Rice has come in 55th overall, the SMU wide receiver, as well as Oklahoma tackle Wanya Morris, 92nd overall. So as a whole, Brad, your take on the offseason for your team?
Well, I'll start with the Super Bowl celebrations, then I'll get into obviously the ins and outs and everything. But this has been the first time that Chiefs fans have been able to celebrate properly a Super Bowl win, because if you remember, obviously when the Chiefs won it back in the 2019 season, sorry, 2020, early 2020, wasn't it, February? Then we didn't have much chance to celebrate because COVID was around. So it was a bit of an issue, really, because it dampened the ring ceremony and everything that the players had. They had to do it on the field of the stadium. Nobody could get involved and hug each other and dance around and stuff. So it's been nice this time. It's been nice to kind of right that wrong a little bit and just really kind of soak up the whole thing during the off season. We've been sat here so smug. It's been so quiet on social media as well. We've got nobody, kind of trash talking us or anything about being flukes from last time, and Mahomes is nothing, hashtag my fraud and all that kind of stuff. So it's been nice. It's been lovely that we've got this time to just really kind of soak it in this time. With the changes, I mean, every year you're going to get changes in any team, aren't you? But the ins and outs that we've had, I mean, one of the fan favorites really was Frank Clark. He was always one of those that used to show up a lot in the postseason. And used to run his mouth, and he used to seem to come alive a lot during that time. And it's a shame we lost him. But times moved on, and we've now got, like you said, we've got Felix, who's going to be coming in. He's going to be on the opposite side of George Karlaftis as well, on the edge. So it's nice to see the young blood coming through now, and I think that seems to be the key with this Chiefs team. We seem to be getting younger. We seem to be getting more value from a lot of our selections, even in the picks that we've got in the draft. We've not really hesitated. We've not hesitated in a way where we've gone out and grabbed somebody off free agency. I think a lot of fans were really kind of really wanting a top class wide receiver in this team, which it never really materialized, other than the fact we had Kadarius Toney from obviously last year. But we don't really seem to have that outright WR1. And I think that's got a lot of fans kind of, what are we going to do? Because if you're thinking about it, I mean, there was DeAndre Hopkins was available, wasn't he? And a lot of fans were really kind of eager to get him on board and get him as our kind of talisman, our WR1. But from what we've gathered so far, I think it's settled a few nerves in training camp, because there's a wide receiver battle going on at the minute, which is really exciting the fans. Yes, there's a lot of names that you probably won't recognize if you're a neutral fan of another team or anything, but there's some tasty wide receivers in this team. I want to kind of big up one of the players that we picked up last year, which was an undrafted free agent, which was Justin Ross. And Justin Ross is the hype train's bigging up. It really is. We saw him a few times. He scored a touchdown, obviously, against the Saints during preseason, which was great to see. Got good connection with Patrick Mahomes. Apparently, Patrick Mahomes' dad has seen Justin Ross at Patrick Mahomes' house, and his new plush house. I don't know if you've seen it, but he's got his own training field and everything with the Mahomes logo and everything like that on it. And apparently, Justin Ross has been over there running routes for him and stuff. So there's a lot of hype around that guy. But seeing players like Rashee Rice, big hands that guy's got. I think was it the biggest hands or something in the draft that we had, and we managed to get him. So safe pair of hands, let's say. But yeah, I mean, it does seem as though a lot of people are thinking that the Chiefs have kind of weakened themselves a little bit. Orlando Brown Jr. being, as you mentioned, he's gone over to the Bengals now, but he was a bit of a Marmite kind of player at the Chiefs. A lot of fans were. I was one of them. I wanted Orlando Brown Jr. to come to the Chiefs because of how he used to play at the Ravens. He was phenomenal at right tackle. And then when they put him over at left tackle at the Chiefs, he's been a bit hit and miss, but he did a job. We managed to win a Super Bowl with him, and I think we wish him well. He has gone to with the enemy, one of our big rivals at the minute, the Bengals, which is it hasn't gone down too well at the Chiefs, but yeah, it's we haven't. I don't think we've lost somebody at all really that has kind of changed the whole shape or the whole structure of this team, especially on like the defensive side. The only issue we have at the minute is obviously the Chris Jones contract, which he's obviously he's meant to be playing this year anyway, but there's a contract negotiations going on, and he's holding out at the minute, which is causing quite a bit of an issue. And a lot of fans are getting a little bit tetchy about it because obviously we lost against the Saints in preseason. A lot of fans were really, really overreacting. Like, well, if we had Chris Jones, we wouldn't have lost that game. It's preseason. Anything happens in preseason, you know what it's like. But yeah, I mean, I'm not too worried about this team going forward. Like I said, the ins and outs that we've had, it's been steady progress. It's not been the big wow signings that we were kind of used to in the past. But yeah, I'm quietly confident that with Mahomes firing the bullets, I think a lot of these youngsters, especially in the wide receiving core, they might shine. They might shine.
Yeah, I mean, Mahomes proved. We saw it last season. Of course, you lost Tyreek Hill, and from outside look in, you look better than you were before. To be honest with you, I did think that with it was Kelsey and Hill, it was so almost came predictable at one point that last season they were there together, Hill and Mahomes. It was the case where if you stop Hill, stop Kelsey, you're stopping the Chiefs. With now what we saw with likes of Juju, McCall Hardman, Kadarius Toney, Sky, all these different receivers, it's hard to know who he's going to throw to. But does that worry you a little bit in terms of your current depth chart? Because obviously Kelsey's going to be the number one receiver. That's always even though he's tight end, he will be the number one target. But right now, I don't think anyone would have thought this 12 months ago. Your number one receiver on the depth chart, according to ESPN.com, is Kadarius Toney. Now, 12 months ago, he was seen as an outcast, a bust. People were seeing him as a surplus to requirements in New York, and I think that Mahomes has done so well the last year to really do it with the exception of Travis Kelce, really with average to subpar receivers. I mean, Juju Smith-Schuster is good, but he's not great. And I think that you look at other teams, you've got the Eagles have got AJ Brown and Devonta Smith. We got Waddle and Hill. The Bengals have Tyler Boyd, Jamar Chase, and I forgot the other guy's name. And those teams these days have two or three really good receivers, especially ones who have rookie years. So Mahomes is redoing it and did it last year, really. One MVP, one Super Bowl MVP, and did that really with not the best receivers. Does that worry you at all in terms of whether he can keep that up again for the following year?
I think the fact that, as you say, we had those kind of players last year. I mean, Juju, he's obviously had his issues when he was at the Steelers and stuff, and not really kind of breaking out. We had MVS, another one who had fits and starts. Then we brought in obviously Kadarius Toney, who was injured on and off, and I mean, it was worrying at first because I think you do want those star players, like you said with Travis Kelce. You want a star player like that to kind of take the eye of the defense. And the defensive coordinators were obviously wanting to scheme against Kelce and obviously against the likes of Tyreek Hill. And to a point, I don't know if you saw the season previous, there was a lot of teams really kind of scheming for Tyreek Hill, and it was working because it was taking that deep threat away. And that was kind of Mahomes' game, and he's almost had to adjust over the last couple of seasons where it's like, right, I'm going to have to learn how to take what the defense is giving me because, he was always about the flashy plays, across the body, 60 yards, whatever it is, 70 yards, whatever it is. We know he can make those throws, but it was always a question mark. Can he really go to the short game if need be? And he really did last year, and that's how he won the Super Bowl through it all. It wasn't the big plays. We didn't see the likes of players like we saw in the previous Super Bowl that he won, where they did the wasp play, where it was like 60-yard stupid ball downfield. It was a lot of it was short routes, slant routes. It was dink and dunk plays, that kind of thing. I think I saw a stat before that he didn't have many passing yards over 20 yards. I can't remember what the actual stat was, but it was very low. It was one of the lowest in the league, where he didn't actually throw over 20 yards airtime. So that's what I believe that the Chiefs are probably trying to emulate this time. Is, well, we've managed to adapt and take away the fact that the defenses relied on that deep threat, and they were sorting that out, because there were a lot of them who were doing like a lot of kind of cover two players and stuff like that, where it was really kind of affecting Mahomes a little bit if you took out his main players. But I think with the Chiefs, they seem to be getting a lot of capable wide receivers, where it's a bit more like death by paper cuts. That's what it seems to be like now, where we've got similar players that could break out. They could hit a ceiling, but there's a lot of potential there as well. And I think they've given him time to actually work with these players, especially, like I said, with the likes of Justin Ross and Rashee Rice. He's getting a lot of time with them at the moment. Unfortunately, Kadarius Toney's injured at the moment. He might be back for the beginning of the season, but it seems to be the part and parcel with Kadarius Toney. He's one of those players who almost injures himself, because he turns on a pivot, and he's planting his foot down a lot, and it causes a lot of injuries when you get that type of player. But when he's on his game, he's going to be an electric player. But I think there's a lot of wide receivers that we've got at the Chiefs now, which, like I said, they've got a good potential about them. It's just, how is Mahomes going to deal with this? Because we all know about Kelsey. A lot of teams are going to scheme for Kelsey, but I think if he's taking the eye of the defensive coordinators, it's going to free up a lot more attacking options for Mahomes to utilize. Even in the running back room as well, we've got some players there that are actually good at receiving. So, it is almost like death by paper cuts. There's a lot of potential there that move away from the run game, but obviously use the running backs as, like that short routes, the screens and stuff like that we can. And we've seen a few of that in training as well recently, where they have been using the running backs in the receiving game a lot more. So it could be just this whole transformation that we're seeing at the minute with the Chiefs, which it's quite tasty. It's quite tasty to see. And yeah, like I said, we haven't got those star quality players that you would expect, but there could be some that might break out at this team for sure.
Yeah, I think that, the way Andy Reid schemes it up, the way all that happens, I think that he can pretty much make any receiver look good, provided they're playing at a certain, maybe at 50%. I think Mahomes and Reid can turn these receivers into 80%, 90%, 100%. And I think it's it's one of the reasons why you've reached 5 straight AFC Championship games, you've hosted all of them, and you've made 3 Super Bowls for that reason alone. I think as long as you've got Reid and Mahomes, I think that anything is possible, or as you guys like to say, anything is possible.
Yeah, shame we not got in this time.
Yeah, he was former Dolphin, of course. Was a backup both times, but unlike most backups, he actually had game time both times. Particularly second time around, I don't think I know he had a game time when they beat the Browns, when he lost to the Buccaneers in the Super Bowl that year. And obviously he had that period where he played in the Super Bowl. No, he didn't play Super Bowl, but he played in the divisional round against the Jaguars? He came on for a bit.
He did, yeah. Yeah, we did have a bit of that because Mahomes went off, didn't he?
Yeah, that's right.
So with his bum ankle. So yeah, but I mean, everybody remembers the play where he went on that run against the Browns and managed to get us in through the next round. And it was, it's players like that that just kind of make yourself a legendary status in Chiefs Kingdom.
Yeah, I agree. And it would be remiss for me not to talk about the Netflix documentary Quarterback, which Mahomes was the main figure of. I spoke before about how it felt a little bit Mahomes heavy, but either way, it was really good insight I found into his sort of day-to-day stuff. But how did you find the documentary?
Really interesting. You think the hard work that they actually put in, but actually seeing that documentary really, really put the focus on what they have to do on a daily basis. And you think that it's, game day comes, they throw a few passes, that's it. They go home and they go back home to the mansion and the beautiful wives and the wonderful kids, and they just have a lovely, wonderful few days off before the next game. It's not any of that at all. And I think it's opened a few eyes. I mean, one of my friends actually said that he's not really into the NFL, and he actually watched it, and he said, I had no idea that the level of intelligence that these guys had to do to actually play the game. It's remembering routes, it's remembering play calls, it's working with wide receivers on your off days and stuff, and getting connections with them built up, and then trying to be a family guy, and then trying to go into training and keep yourself fit. It's just constant daily just interference, isn't it? I mean, a lot of it is just you've got to keep disciplined in that, and that just really emphasized it, even for all three of those quarterbacks on there. I think it did great things for Kirk Cousins in that, because I think a lot of people respected him a lot more. You got more of an insight into I always liked his room, his memory room that he was building and stuff, and he's got a place for the Super Bowl there and stuff, and he's getting into that mindset of how a player is. I mean, a lot of the time they are fans of the game as well, and to see Kirk Cousins having that memory room with all of his trophies and all of his game balls and stuff like that, it was fantastic to see. But yeah, okay, it might have been a bit heavy on Mahomes, but I mean, he won a Super Bowl in that same year as well. So I think it gave the documentary makers a wonderful ending, that's for sure.
Yeah, I agree, and I really enjoyed it. And I'm hoping at some point they'll feature a Dolphins player. I think it must be even more exciting if it's your team involved. Like a lot of Vikings fans and Falcons fans, as well as Chiefs fans, like yourself, must have really enjoyed seeing one of their own quarterbacks be focused so much on a documentary.
Yeah.
And of course, Mahomes will hope this year to have a better defense than what we saw last year, because looking at the stats in terms of your pass defense, so total yards allowed per game, looking at the where you were to the other teams, you're round about middle of the road. You were 12th when it came to passing yards allowed.
Yeah.
Sorry, total yards was 12th. Passing yards allowed was you around about the 19th, 20th position. Actually, in the top 10 when it came to rushing yards allowed, but then points allowed, you were again middle of the road. I'm looking here at the results you had last year. Of course, the Super Bowl, of course, was the one that we all remember. Of course, you put a lot of points against them. They scored 35 points against you, 20 against both the Jaguars and the Bengals. I mean, only looking at it, only 5 of the 18 games, 17 games you played involved conceding less than 20 points a game. You had 24 conceded in week 2 against the Chargers, 31 against the Buccaneers conceded, 27 against the Bengals, 28 against the Broncos, and 24 against Broncos again. So, this is the team that we had these issues back in 2020. I remember when you won a Super Bowl in the 2019 season, I should say, there were a lot of defensive issues in it. Really, another day you could have lost that game to the Eagles, and your defense would have been the main takeaway as to what lost you that game. So, looking and going back to the incomings and outcomings, of course, you've lost Frank Clark, Carlos Dunlap, and I know you've brought in the likes of Drew Tranquil, but Frank Clark, as you said, was a big part of that defense. So, does that worry you at all in terms of the fact your defense did let sort of concede a lot of points last year?
Yeah, I mean, we always say that if you give Mahomes a top 10 defense, he's going to win you another Super Bowl, and it's not cocky to say that, because Mahomes led offense that's actually being called by Andy Reid is going to get you the points, but the defensive side, I'll not lie, it has been a bit of an issue, a bit of a concern for a lot of years, because it seems as though our GM Brett Veach doesn't like to get top class cornerbacks at star value prices. He seems to just trust in the process in the draft, or pick up players in free agency basically at value. And you're seeing a lot of the DBs that we've got. I think the most expensive DB we've got in there at the moment is actually Justin Reed. And he was there last year, so obviously it's good to have him there. And so a lot of the defense still remains, but like I said, we're trying to get wiser on it. We're trying to get youthful on it. We're trying to get a bit more cheaper on it. I mean, we've got the likes of, Legarius Sneed, who's a hell of a corner. You can dial him up in the blitz as many times as you want, and he'll do a job there as well. So, a lot of the time, Veach is always looking for a diverse kind of player that can play multiple roles. If you want to play corner, you can play in safety and plug in there, or you can kind of back up with it, when there's a linebacker down or something like that. So there's a lot of players there that actually mold into the shape of the defense that Spagnuolo really wants them to play. Yeah, like I said, Frank Clark's a big miss, and we hope that Felix is going to be that guy. From what we've seen already in pre-season, I know it's only been one game, but we've seen Felix really kind of bringing it and really kind of bringing the skill set that we expect, and we think that we've got somebody who's almost like for like from Frank Clark. It's hard to say that for sure, because obviously Frank Clark's a double Super Bowl winner, and we know exactly what he brought, especially on the big games. But seeing Felix at the minute, he really does seem as though he's going to be a nice little plug in there. And like I said, the edge that we had with George Karlaftis from last year, I think he got about 6 sacks last year, I think it might have been. So if he builds on that, then we've got a good solid edge rush there. But the strongest part for me in this defense is actually the linebackers. The likes of Nick Bolton. I love the guy Nick Bolton. I love his story. And if you ever get a chance, if anybody has, never really heard of Nick Bolton or what he does or who he is, Nick Bolton's the linebacker for the Chiefs. And if you listen to his story, I think there was a story on YouTube about why he actually plays the game. I won't ruin it for you. Just watch it, and you will root for the guy from this day to the end because he really has a drive and an ambition and a passion to actually be the best player he can be in the league. And I connected with that straight away when I first saw that. I was like, that's the guy for me. I'm completely on board with him, and he's really done a good job for us there. We've obviously got Willie Gay, a linebacker as well, who's another really, really good linebacker on that. And now we've got Drew Tranquil, who was, I mean, he was absolutely phenomenal in that preseason game for us. So I'm excited about the linebacker core. Yes, the defensive line, it might be a bit of an issue if Chris Jones doesn't get a deal sorted, but we're still going to get him for this year as well. If he's still playing under a contract, and he's still going to get 28 million this year. But it's how hard is he going to go after that if he doesn't get a deal done? Is he just going to kind of eke out his contract and just not push it as hard? Who knows? But I've got a sneaky feeling he's going to sign. I've got a sneaky feeling because he's been holding out of training camp this long, and he's been getting fined to the fact that he's not actually at training camp, and it's getting a hefty fine now. I think it's up to the millions now. So you don't really do that unless you think you're going to get that kind of offset when you sign a new deal. So I'm kind of sneakily thinking that he's going to sign sooner rather than later. But the defense, if they can kind of keep it middle of the road or even better, improve on that this year and get into that top 10 on everything, I think the Chiefs have got a good chance of actually, going further again into the postseason.
So now it's time for the final segment of the podcast. Now, if you're listening to this podcast and haven't tuned into our other season previews, first of all, please do. But otherwise, if you haven't yet, the format is I ask every fan to give an answer of win, loss, or tie for every game of their team season. So, week 1 is the season opener, of course, as you are the defending champions. It's at home to the Detroit Lions. Win, loss, or tie?
I've got a win on that one. I think nobody's kind of destroying the Super Bowl parade on this one. I don't think the Lions. I mean, it kind of touted as being up there as being a kind of a big team this year. So it'd be interesting to see how they play. But I think the Chiefs, you can't rain on the parade, surely.
Week 2 is your first road game. This one is against the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yeah, I've got a confident win on that one.
Okay. Moving on to week 3 is the Chicago Bears at home.
Another confident win for the Chiefs, I'm afraid, on that one. That's going well, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's what I expected. It's we've had some optimistic and negative fans, or maybe pessimistic fans, but you've got every right to be to be positive. Week 4 is a big one for me. On the road to the Jets.
I've actually fallen for the Jets hype. I've
Same.
actually gone for the Chiefs' first loss here because the Jets. I mean, we've all seen that they've been stacking up quite a bit on a lot of really good players, and I think they didn't sign Dalvin Cook recently as well.
Yeah.
Which I mean, that's another kind of string to their bow as well. Which, yeah, I'm kind of falling for the hype. I think on the Jets on this one. I've got them down. I've got the Chiefs down as a loss for the first loss.
Hey, and then week 5 on the road again, but this time against the Minnesota Vikings.
I was going to go for an overtime kind of win on this one, and I think I'll stick with that. I think an overtime win. I think the Vikings, we could struggle against them. I think it's one of those teams. I think the Vikings. I think if we have a bit of an off day, or if the defense is kind of struggling from the first few games, we could have a bit of a nail biter on that one. I think.
Yeah, I think they're a team that's been overlooked quite a lot, I think,
Yeah.
season. Week 6 is at home against the Denver Broncos.
I've got a win on that because we've beaten them for the last 15 times in a row. So I'm going to go for 16 on this one for the for win for the Chiefs against the Broncos.
Okay, so week 7 is against the Los Angeles Chargers at home.
Yeah. Now again, I've been teetering with this team because we hear every off season that the Chargers are going to topple the Chiefs. And I've got us down as a win, but they do always seem to run us close. So it could be another one of those nail biters. But I think with the Reed's old head, and we've got obviously the veterans in Mahomes and Kelsey, I think they might just get us over the line against the Chargers on this one.
And in week 8, the AFC West trend continues. You're once again against the Broncos, but this time on the road.
Yeah, win 17 against the Broncos.
Really compiling the misery on them. But I think as well at this point that we're going to know whether Russell Wilson was bad because of Hackett or whether he's bad because he's turned a certain age. I think if it gets to week 6 and they're struggling, or week 7, you can really pile the misery on the Broncos.
Yeah, I mean, it really will depend on whether Peyton can get something out of him. And if he can, brilliant, brilliant for them, I suppose. But I don't know. I think from what I saw last year, I just don't think Russell Wilson's connected with that team. It just feels weird. It just feels like the connection's off. So I'm kind of hoping it is still off, and we can get that extra win on them.
Yeah, and I think if any of you listening or watching on YouTube saw their preseason opener, I believe it was against the Cardinals, where albeit it is preseason, but they were playing a lot of their starters against what I believe was the backups at the Cardinals. And apart from one touchdown for Judy, it looked bad on the highlight. Albeit I watched it via a 2-minute segment on Good Morning Football, but they showed some of the plays, or I say highlights, more like lowlights of some of the plays. It looked terrible, and I think that there's all the Peyton stuff going on in terms of all these comments he's making about the Jets, and Rodgers alluded to insecurity there. He's gone out and talked about how we can't have this and can't have that, and he didn't pick Russell Wilson, and he's been volatile in terms of what he wants, since if he can't have an office, and he's been quite almost like a bull in the china shop when he's come in. And I think that can work one or two ways. It can either really galvanise a team, or it can go the other way. So I think I'm really intrigued to see how he's going to do, because at the Saints, he's a fantastic head coach, and he almost won them games by himself. So I think if he's at that level, I think they're going to be fine. But it's just whether Russell Wilson is going to gel with Peyton, and whether they're going to perform.
Yeah. I think we might see some improvements from him. I think Peyton probably needs at least a season with him, just to at least get him into some kind of scheme and understand what he's got with Russell Wilson. But yeah, I think that's probably what's going to be the difference here is, how are they going to gel together, I suppose. And, has Peyton worked out the formula for him yet? There's a lot of questions around that for me at the minute. So that's why we've got the kind of double win against the Broncos.
Okay, then next up is, of course, the one we mentioned earlier, the game in Germany in Deutsche Bank Park in Frankfurt against Miami Dolphins. How are you seeing that one?
Well, because I'm going to this game, I've got it down as a win. But I'll be honest, I'm a little concerned about the Dolphins. It all depends really on if Tyreek is playing, and obviously if Tua is playing as well. Waddle's obviously a good one to watch. But I don't know. I just think I think Mahomes against Tua. I think Mahomes obviously edged that, no problem. But I don't know if the Dolphins will have enough in the tank on that. I think the Chiefs will probably be zeroing in on Tyreek Hill quite a bit. I think that'll be the main game plan. So it all depends on how our DBs kind of cope with him. But I think, yeah, I think the Chiefs, with me being there and me being undefeated every time I've seen the Chiefs, I'm going with a win.
especially if I go as well, it's going to be that's a guaranteed win. If I
Exactly, yeah.
do end up going, then I think it's a lock. I think it's lock of the week for them to
Yeah, exactly.
let through to
Yeah.
beat us. Week 10 is a bye week, so you go into week 11 on an 8-1 record against the Philadelphia Eagles, of course, a team that you beat in the Super Bowl all those months ago.
Yeah. After the bye week here, I mean, it's all sound rosy at the moment, isn't it? That I've got the Chiefs as what 8-1 in the first half of the season. It sounds as though we're actually marching on to another postseason. This is where it all falls down, I'm afraid.
Hey.
The Eagles will absolutely be up for this game and absolutely want revenge on the Chiefs. We've heard all the rumors and all of the excuses of the fact that the Eagles were slipping all over the turf at Arizona during the Super Bowl, and that's why they lost. And da 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 da. I think a lot of it is going to come down to this Eagles team. From what I saw from their offensive line, it frightened the hell out of me during the Super Bowl. And I still don't know how we beat that team. I have no idea how we beat that team in the Super Bowl. I mean, it came down to real fine margins. But one of those margins was so wide, which was their offensive line against our defensive line. And if we don't have Chris Jones there, or he's holding out, or he's feigning an injury or something like that, and we don't have him there, we are going to have massive problems against the Eagles. So I've got us down as a loss.
Okay, and of course the holding call right at the end will be was one that was talked about for many days and many weeks
Yeah.
afterwards. One, I'm still not sure how that happened really. Week 12.
It's actually interesting as well. It's actually interesting because Andy Reid off a bye week. I mean, I know a lot of Chiefs fans will be going, "What's he talking about?" Andy Reid on a bye week is kind of like, it's undefeated. He's so strong after a bye week. But I just think this Eagles team is just so strong.
Yeah, I think the loss of Javon Hargrave, I think, could be a factor. Could be interesting for the Eagles, but I think that team is still really good, and they've kept everyone as well.
Yeah.
And of course, the OC Shane Steichen has gone, so it's a question of whether they'll be the same then. But you got to think there'll be a team that's going to be at least in the NFC divisional game, and I think that I think them and the Lions are probably two clear favourites in that division. I think there's other teams you can put in that can surprise a few and get there and beat them on a day. But I think in terms of on paper, I think you're looking at the Lions and the Eagles. They are just two ridiculously strong teams right now in that conference.
Yeah.
Week 12 though, you're back on the road. This time in Vegas to take on the Raiders.
Yeah, I mean Vegas is we're undefeated in Vegas at the moment at the Chiefs against the Raiders. So you would think I would be going for a win on this, but I see this as one of the usual banana skin kind of games that we have. We had one last year, I think it was against the Colts, I think it might have been. And a game we should have won, we didn't. And it's going to be one of those games that's probably going to, after a loss against the Eagles, we might be kind of licking our wounds a little bit. And I just think the Raiders game probably coming at a bad time, especially on the road. It might just be one of those hiccup games that I hope I'm wrong, but I've got us down as a loss on that.
Hey, and in week 13, on the road again, but this time at Lambeau Field against the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, I've got us down as a win just to kind of settle the nerves a little bit, get back on track, marching on to the postseason.
Okay, and then week 14 is another one of your rivalries that you developed times at home to the Buffalo Bills.
I've got us a loss. The Bills during the season, the Bills during the season are phenomenal. It's where they fall down is the postseason. They seem to just really kind of like, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the occasion or what, but during the season, they seem to be unstoppable. But as soon as the postseason comes up and it's they're getting into the divisional rounds and stuff, they just really don't turn up. It's weird. It's so strange. But I've got us down as a seasonal loss, but it won't hurt us too much because we'll just get them in the postseason.
Yeah, and the ghost of those 4 Super Bowl losses is once again come back to strike them, and I think that their window is getting thinner now, and I think that if they don't win it the next year or two, I think they could not win one for a long time. I know they got Josh
Yeah.
Allen, but Diggs is getting older. He threatened to leave this offseason. There's all this talk about it, unrest. And I do question whether McDermott is a postseason head coach. I think he's done so well for regular season wise. He's done so well over the years. Of course, he's been the best head coach really since probably Mark Levy. But at the same time, I just do question whether he is good enough to go to that next step. We talked about it in our Bills episode, but I just do question whether he's great. I think he's a very good head coach, but I don't know whether he's great and whether he's the kind of head coach that can win you Super Bowls personally. But
Yeah.
they could be wrong and win it all this year. You never know.
Yeah.
Week 15 is a road game against the New England Patriots.
Yeah, I got us down as a win on that one. I just think at the moment it's the Chiefs' time. It's not the Patriots' time. They've had their time over the past 2 decades, so it's time for a new dynasty.
Yeah. It is going from them to you essentially. You've handed over the baton to you essentially from their dynasty to yours, and I think that your dynasty, I think it's hard to know whether it will compete with the Patriots. One, I think they won so many Super Bowls and got to so many Super Bowls, but I think you are the current dynasty, and I can't see anything changing. Week 16 is your penultimate home game and your third to last game of the season at home to the Raiders.
Yeah, I've got us down as a win against the Raiders on this one, just to kind of get revenge of the defeat earlier on in week 12. I just think, the Raiders, it's one of those that we seem to have the number of quite a bit. And I know it was always kind of Derek Carr led, but I think Jimmy Garoppolo, we kind of schemed for him pretty well. And we saw that when he was at the 49ers in the Super Bowl. We seemed to scheme pretty well for him. So I think it's going to be a quite a comfortable win on that one.
Okay, and then your final home game of the year is against a team that probably has given you the most trouble in the last few years in the Cincinnati Bengals on New Year's Eve.
Yeah, again, I've got us down as a loss. Again, Joe Burrow seems to just have something on us during the seasons. It's one of those age-old stories, isn't it? That you've got somebody who is just the nemesis, and I think Joe Burrow is the nemesis of Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes, clearly from that, we're talking about that documentary before quarterback. He's mentioned in that he absolutely wanted to play Joe Burrow in the championship game last year, and he got his wish, and he obviously got the win. But I think the job's not done yet for Patrick Mahomes, and he wants to try so hard to actually get over this hump that he has with Joe Burrow, because he's getting under his skin a little bit. I think that's the key here. I think Mahomes desperately wants to beat him. He realizes he's a rival, and I think this Bengals team is going to be strong for another year or two at least.
Yeah, and I think Burrow, for me, I think he's next Brady in terms of, I think, that mentality he's got. I'm not the biggest fan of his personality in terms of he can be, for me, quite cocky at times, but I think in terms
I'm
of...
with you on that. Yeah, I'm with you on that. He's a bit like that, yeah.
I think most callbacks, especially wide receivers, most players are cocky in some way. Even Mahomes, who I love, can be cocky, but he's only really cocky when they've won. I just find when I'm watching Burrow, you've made 1 Super Bowl, yes, and you've made 2 straight AFC Championship games, but I just think until you've won one, I don't think you can be that smug and that cocky, if I'm honest. But on the actual field itself, I mean, he's a winner in my eyes. I think apart from Mahomes, there's no other quarterback I'd rather have in a big game than Burrow. I think he just has it switched on when it matters, and I think that he is just someone that I'm in no doubt that if we had tanked properly and got him in the 2020 draft, I do think I'd absolutely love him. So I think if you're a Bengals fan, they're obviously they absolutely love him, obviously, but it's I think there'll be a team that will be, if they're not at least in the divisional round, I will be shocked. I'll be absolutely stunned. Unless they somehow play the Chiefs and seeding's gone against them and they play you in the divisional round, I find it very hard. I'll be shocked if they're not there, and I'll be shocked if they don't play you at some point in that run. Final game. Actually, before we do that, actually, of course, I don't know what your like in terms of whether you go out on New Year's Eve or not. But this game is going to be on at 8:25 p.m. in the UK on New Year's Eve. Now, I don't know whether you go out on New Year's Eve, whether you stay in, but that what will you be doing on that day? Because that seems like normally a real perfect time to watch a game in the
Oh,
UK.
do you know what? I'm quite torn on this because over the years as I've got older, I've kind of just thought, I'm just going to sit in the house with a bottle of wine and see the new year in. And it's perfect for me because at least I get entertained for the next 3 to 4 hours watching the Chiefs versus the Bengals. So at least I'll be entertained and I can see in the new year in style as a Chiefs fan. I mean, it could be that some of the fan groups, maybe our heads abroad or something like that, might put on a watch party somewhere. But I mean, the thing is, I mean, trying to get some venue like that on New Year's Eve is gonna cost a bit, isn't it? So I might be staying at home with a bottle of wine, I think. Bottle of red.
Oh, so red, not white, red wine, is it?
Not white. No. Definitely red.
Fair play. I mean, I believe if I'm right, I think it actually is a full slate of games on that day as well. It's not just one game and that's it. I
Oh,
believe
that's going to be good.
it's a full slate. So I think for me, I've mentioned before in a previous episode that I pretty much since COVID, I've really just gone off the idea of New Year's Eve. I've had two COVID New Year's Eves where it's been, you're stuck in the house, and I've actually quite liked it in a way. I think last time I played cards with the family, it was quite a tame New Year's Eve. But I think now, especially with the way age I am, you go to a club now. I'm 28 now. I went to a club in January in Newcastle, and I hated it because everyone there was like 18, 19. I felt so old. So I just think that
I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
It feels so wrong in a way. It feels bad, and I just think that nowadays, don't get me wrong. If a mate of mine goes to me, I'm having a little do at my house, I'll probably go, and I'll probably just record it and watch it the next day and try to avoid the result because all my friends hate the NFL, so it'll be quite easy to avoid results. Turn my notifications off; it'll be quite easy to do so. But if nothing's happening with friends, and I'm going to do what you do, I'm going to stay in, watch the full slate, and do that. And it gets better for me because week 18 is Sunday off my birthday, so I'll be getting for the first time in my lifetime the final week of the NFL season on my birthday, which I'm very excited for. Where you play on the road the Los Angeles Chargers.
Yeah. I've kind of scribbled this out a few times. I've put a W and then an L, then a W, then an L. I really can't decide on this game because again, it's in the back of my mind that the Chargers are always favourites in the off season. I've plugged for a win in the end, which obviously makes us go 12-5 throughout the whole season. But it could easily be 11-6. So I'm kind of hovering around that at the minute. There might be a tie in there somewhere, but they're very rare, aren't they? But a confident 12-5 or a not so confident 11-6. It could be that kind of last part run of the season after the bye week might be a bit of a difficult stumbling block for the Chiefs because I've got them starting off really strongly. But I think with the Eagles, Bills, Bengals, all coming in that second part of the season, it's just going to kind of be a bit of a derailer, I think, for this Chiefs train.
Yeah, I think you're right. And looking at the record, you mentioned that you are 12-5, which obviously means that that's obviously going to be a divisional win. So that's going to be likely a playoff appearance, maybe even a division win. Obviously, you get 12-5. How far are you predicting your team to go in the playoffs?
I think it'd be disappointing if we didn't get to the AFC Championship at least. I think that's the expectation now from this organization. We see it all the time from some of the footage we see when the players are all sat and they're listening to the owner and he sets the goal out for the year, and that's obviously been changing quite rapidly in the last few seasons. And he always sets a goal out that he wants to absolutely win the Lamar Hunt Trophy in the AFC Championship game. That seems to be the Chiefs owner's goal right from the off. Is we've got to get our father's trophy back and bring it back to its rightful home. So I think once they get past that, then they can obviously think about the Super Bowl. But it really is. It's strange to think that there's a team focused solely on getting the Lamar Hunt Trophy back rather than actually getting the Super Bowl back. But I mean, we could repeat. I mean, that's something that's on the cards. We could absolutely repeat. We've proved last year that we don't need the star players as such. We don't need a whole team of star players to actually get to a Super Bowl and actually beat teams that are really excellent teams. As long as you've got Mahomes, Kelsey, and Reed as the kind of main backbone of that offense, and you've got the good standard of players that we've got in the defensive side of things. It could absolutely be another repeat, but I don't know. I'm kind of reserved, and I think you can tell that from my seasonal predictions that I'm a little bit could be 11-6, could be 12-5. I don't know how the season's going to go. I'm confident, obviously, because we have got those players like Mahomes and Kelsey, and the amazing play calling from Reed, because we've seen the scheme change a lot over the last few seasons where it's adapted completely to what the defensive coordinators of other teams have been dialing up for against Mahomes. So have we got something there under our, up our sleeve maybe, that we're going to be using the running backs a bit more as receivers, and, are we going to be dialing up some wonderful plays again? Because that seems to be the Andy Reid's thing. He dials up some amazing plays that you never see coming. And after seeing the vanilla performance that we had against the Saints in the preseason, I think he's got something up his sleeve.
Yeah, I think you could be right. And I think that's someone who always roots for the Chiefs, because I do like Mahomes. So I would like to see that happen if it doesn't come at the expense of my team. You mentioned, and you're a bit sort of maybe 11-6, 12-5, but as 12-5, you are currently our joint fourth most optimistic fan, which I think.
Really?
Yeah, so we've had, obviously, actually, our last three guests, including yourself, have all been 12-5. So we had Lee White, our Jags fan, had 12-5. Marek Larwood, our Lions fan, had 12-5. But above you, we've only got our Cincinnati Bengals fan, Rory Joe Daniels, with 13-4. Same as Charlie Nelson, our Bills fan, 13-4, and still leading the way. He came on, I think, our second or third one of the mini series. Our 49ers fan, Paul Hope, with 14-3. So, I think
wow,
a lot
14-3. Wow.
Yeah, it's some optimism there in the air. It's the 49ers. I mean, it's easy compliment, but we got a lot of 11-6. We got about 5 or 6 11-6s, 3 10-7s, 1 9-8, and then a 6-11 and 5-12 for our two.
Somebody's actually gone for the loss season, have they? Is that what they've done?
I mean, they are two very depressed Cardinals fans, so
oh, right,
that's probably generous.
Yeah, it probably is, actually. Yeah, it probably is. I mean, it's, I mean, like I said, I'm quite confident. I think you have to be as champions, but like I said, there's quite a bit of reserved kind of predictions on that, because, like I said, the Bengals really are the main rivals for us at the minute, and they've kept everybody in their team quite strong. So absolutely, the Bengals are going to be our rivals, as well as the Eagles in the season game that we could have. We may meet them again in the Super Bowl. I don't know. Will we get a repeat from last year? Who knows? But I think the AFC at the minute is just full of potential suitors for the postseason, and we're going to see that quite a bit, I think, over the next few years. I don't know about the Bills. I'm not sure about the Bills. I think the Bills probably, their Super Bowl window is probably closed or is closing, and I don't think they'll probably get through the postseason, but I don't think they'll be there or thereabouts that the Chiefs and the Bengals will be. But it's exciting. I'm looking forward to it. Another good season.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it as well. I mean, our division is going to be extremely tough, and I think that's, had so many years of the Patriots just winning it every single year, and the Bills had it for a few years where it's just them, and now you can make a genuine case for 3 to 4 teams winning it. I think even with Jalen Ramsey's injury, I think we've got a case to win it. The Jets have got a case to win it, and the Bills do, and I think that it's just nice.
It's a tasty division, that one. I remember the Chiefs had one a few years ago when it was, Russell Wilson came in, and we had Justin Herbert, who's going to be the Bengal at the Chargers, and obviously you had Devontae Adams coming in for the Raiders, and it was going to be, this massive battle, and everything was going to be about the AFC West, and it never kind of materialized. But I can see the AFC East really kind of having a bit of a battle this year, and that's the one to watch, I think, for me this year. The AFC East is definitely the one to watch.
Yeah, I think for me it's that, and I do believe the AFC North and NFC North are two divisions that really excite me. But there's one thing we can all agree on, and everyone at home as well can. It's nice that the Patriots aren't in that conversation anymore.
Yeah, do you know about my Patriots hatred? Do you?
No, but I can imagine it's the same as everyone else's.
Oh, I've had it in for Brady for a long time as well, and it's like no, I just yeah. And when we lost to him against the Buccaneers, I was ready to take away. I think I was ready for the straight jacket after that.
And also 2 years before that, it was for me still until maybe the Bills Chiefs game, the best game I ever watched. One of them at least, the Patriots Chiefs eighth championship game. Mahomes' first one. That was some game for me. I mean, I
We should have
actually
gone through. We should have
yeah.
gone through on
There
that.
was
Terrible.
was it Frank Clark? Who's the guy who had that
No,
false
it was D
start?
Ford. D Ford
Lee
was
Ford,
offside.
that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, D Ford was offside, and that was it. That was nail in the coffin for us.
Yeah. I mean, I must say, actually, I've always hated the team, but I've never hated Brady or Gronk. Everyone else, different story, but I just found there's something, Gronk, obviously, there's obviously why he's quite likable, but I just found Brady, I don't know what it was, he just endeared me. I don't know what it is. I just think there's something about him that, I don't know, I think it's the way he goes about his game, his diet and all that, and the way he was 6 round pick. That story he has, I think that if you exclude Deflategate, I think there's a lot to like about him. And I don't know. I know a lot of Dolphins fans give me stick for that, but I just think that everyone else around, but Belichick and all them, yeah, different story. But I found Brady and Gronk I found them quite likable, but obviously didn't want to win games. But they were quite likable. I found.
Yeah, yeah. You found that a lot of fans were, as soon as Brady retired, there was a lot of respect came out of some fan bases. I'm not there. I'm really not there. I'm really not there. I'm like, I'm still scorned and still hurt by the fact that he was in an AFC East division which was just crap for 2 decades. And I'll die on that hill.
No, actually, I was actually in Birmingham on Saturday, not realizing he was going to be there, and also I didn't meet him, but
yeah.
I looked. Also, then my train back to Hereford was about, I think it was 2:45, 3. So I'm on this train and I'm seeing that Brady was in a Birmingham pub. I'm thinking I've just been literally in. I was like, I felt it's like I think it was a quarter of an hour drive away from where I was. I'm thinking I was, without realizing, just so close to Brady. But I mean, yeah, I don't think many of his Birmingham fans would have known who he was, or like the NFL, you never know. But if you're in there and you're an NFL fan, that must have been so surreal.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. I mean, it's funny because I don't know what I'd be like if I actually met him. If I bumped into him in a pub, I don't know what I'd be like. Whether I'd be like proper, like scornful looks at him, or you're looking at my pint badly. I don't know. I don't know how I'd be with him. I'd probably have a chat with him. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think I'd have to, wouldn't I? And get probably a photo with him and something like that.
Oh.
Maybe do the bunny ears behind his head or something. I don't know. But yeah. I'm sure I'd respect him if I actually met him. But yeah. I've still got that horrible, evil kind of, evil empire that I'm trying to crush in my head, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure if I got a bit of a hatred towards CJ Gardner-Johnson, and I know full well that if I bumped into him in a bar or a restaurant or something, I know full well that I'd probably want to get a photo with him, because I remember although I did actually, I was on a plane recently to Spain, and Matt Hancock was on my flight.
Yeah.
And
what do you do there? What do you?
No, well, it's one time where I actually didn't want a photo as a celebrity. I mean, normally I can get like starstruck around famous people, but it's the one time where obviously there's more to the story, where he actually came up to the Hindu that was behind us. So he was actually quite near it at one point. But yeah, it's one time where I've actually not wanted to actually speak to a celebrity. It's and but I do think if I met CJ Gardner-Johnson, I think I probably would be quite nice to him, even though in my head I'm like, you're just a horrible person.
Yeah. That's the thing, isn't it? Yeah, but hey.
But we will end the podcast there. So first of all, thank you, Brad, for coming on and rejoining the show.
Problem. No problem at all. I've really enjoyed it.
Thank you very much, and I've enjoyed it too. And we will catch you guys for our next season preview, which is going to be the Philadelphia Eagles. See you guys then.